All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Mariana. I am the energy reader, which is a psychic, an evidential medium, an animal communicator, and a nonverbal communicator all rolled into one. So within that, I also do tarot. And that's actually how I started. If you want some more information about how I started, certainly you can put questions in the comments. I don't want to bore you. But I did start with tarot. Interestingly enough, way back in high school, I bought a tarot deck and I bought some runes and I had all the Llewellyn books. Like I had them all, right? I even had this really neat antique book on witches and demons. But I never knew what to do with it. And I never had a mentor and we didn't have the internet like you guys have it now. So I'm excited. If you just made it to my channel, this is free information and I'll be, full disclosure, it's free information because I also teach advanced tarot. And I also teach shadow work tarot. And I also teach how to go deeper tarot, right? So this is the very basics. So if you already know the very basics, certainly keep in touch with me. Do subscribe, click the bell for notifications. I will be doing some advanced stuff on here, but those are the classes that I'm also trying to market. All right, so let's dive in. Tarot. So the history of tarot, I'm not going to give you that either because the history of tarot is easy to get, and it's also really depends on what book you're looking at or who you're asking. There are some people that think playing cards came first, and playing cards did come first, but there are some people that think that tarot came from playing cards, but tarot is actually really its own game, if you will. It was called Taroki. I'm going to have to settle my birds down. All right, so tarot itself came from Tarocchi or Tafoni. It had different, I'm not saying those very well. I'm definitely not Italian. But it had its own beginning, if you would, its own birthing, if you would. It did start also as a game, supposedly, that's what we know. And then it kind of morphed into the tarot that we know today. There's a ton of milestones, there's a ton of high points, there's Aleister Crowley. There are the Rider-Waite-Smith. There are other tarot decks. There's so much. So I'm not here to cover the history of it, although I find it fascinating. Yes, I find it fascinating. I do follow the Rider-Waite-Smith journey, if you will. So everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be based on the definitions of the cards for the Rider-Waite-Smith. So for example, this is not the art of the Smith. This is not Pamela Coleman Smith. So Pamela Coleman Smith is someone who did the art for the first, kind of the ubiquitous tarot deck that you see everywhere, right? Let me see if I. All right, so some of this is an adaptation of the Pamela Coleman Smith, and it stays along kind of the same lines, right? So we have the Pamela Coleman Smith tarot idea, theme. I'm not sure what you'd call that. This is another one of the Pamela Coleman Smith. And then, you know what? Let me go grab, there's another one that I want to show. All right, so I had to go get my small little travel. This is a little travel size tarot deck. Isn't that cute? And it has its own little package. I bought this used from a gal in Estonia. I had to look that up. This is the Pamela Coleman Smith Rider-Waite imagery. That's what I'm looking for. So for example, this would be the Pope, right? This would be, that's not what he's called. I'm having a hard time. Okay, some people call him the Pope. Some people call the Empress the Popess. This is called the Hierophant in the Rider-Waite. So this is the normal, this is the art theme images that you will see in most of the tarot decks. Let's see, let me pick out something really good. The Three of Pentacles is one of my favorite cards. It's about work, but it's also about knowing your shit. The Empress, also another one of my favorite cards. So I'm not going to go through every single card, but this is the Pamela Smith Rider-Waite imagery. This deck that I actually bought used at a used bookstore is really cute if you have somebody younger in your life or if you're just learning. And I don't know, you can find them online, but it has words, right? It has words to it. And so, for example, this is the Magician. This would be called the Major Arcana, and we'll go over that. And it's about creation. It says you have many talents and skills. Like a magician, you can create anything you wish, which is definitely part of what the magician is here to tell us. All right, so those are just some random cards. These cards are very fancy. They're very shiny. They're very fun if you like these cards. Looks like this on the back. Don't remember the name of them, unfortunately, but I think if you go to Amazon and you put in like gold foil tarot cards, okay? Another thing we're going to go over is some myths and some things that just simply aren't true. I'm going to show you a couple more tarot decks. This is the one that I primarily use at the moment. It's called the Light Seers deck. It's very visually fun. It's very visually modern. It's very visually diversified. One of the things that you'll have a hard time sometimes is that a lot of the Rider-Waite Smith decks are very white. And so there's a ton of other kinds of decks out there. So don't get caught up in looking for some, being offended that it's white. I mean, that's just, historically that's what they did. But there are other decks, modern decks that you can obviously find where everyone doesn't look the same. For example, the Page of Swords in this one is a girl, but traditionally that's going to be a guy in the Rider-Waite. What else? This is what the Three of Pentacles looks like in this deck. And again, Three of Pentacles, one of my favorite cards. Ten of Wands, one of my favorite cards. This is the work card. This is the overwork card. So this is the one that I use primarily now. I really love it. I went to a show and the wind destroyed my tent and threw my cards all over the place. And I didn't have this deck for like a week. And I ordered 4 of the same deck, so I never run out of it again. So let's go over really fast the differences between a tarot deck and an oracle deck. So what are the differences? So number one, tarot has a very long historical history behind it. As I said, some people think that playing cards invented the tarot, but that wasn't quite how it happened. But we're also speculating. All we have to work off of is what other people have told us throughout history, right? So which came first, the chicken or the eggs? Now, having said that, so this is my cheat sheet. So there's the major arcana to a tarot deck, and then there are the court cards and the minor arcana. And so this is the cheat sheet that you can get off of my website if you like. The print is very small. So if you have a hard time seeing or if you have any visual impairment, just understand that it is very small. But I made it this way because you can fold it into thirds and you can take it with you to events or to where you go to practice. So we have a history with the tarot deck. We have the major, the minor, the court cards. We have very specific, layouts that you can do. If you start getting bougie, there's a very much of a system to tarot. That's what I'm looking for. Now, if you go and you just pick up an oracle deck, it's going to be based on whatever the maker made it. So for example, this is the Lantern Oracle. It's a very beautiful oracle deck. The cards are amazing. They feel very matte. They feel they're thick enough that you can shuffle, but they're very soft. Interestingly enough, this is a great card. It's called Radical Self-Acceptance, and she has one breast and she's lost one breast, obviously probably breast cancer, and it's called Radical Self-Acceptance. Oh, hold on with the bird. All right, so the bird's got caged up. So this is called Radical Self-Acceptance. Now, there is a book that comes with it. I'm not going to get into that, but obviously you could go to number 29 and you could look it up. It's kind of self-explanatory, but there's going to be a lot more in the book that will give you about the card. Yeah, it's a lot. So we're not here to get into that, but they don't necessarily, an oracle deck doesn't necessarily follow any system. It doesn't have a major and a minor. It doesn't have, it has whatever the creator of the oracle deck wanted it to have, and that's where the book comes in. This one says assistance with access. So if I were to shuffle this and I just gave you a tarot reading and I was like, we'll close down with an oracle card and I pull assistance with access. It is necessary to ask for and accept help in order to receive it. Now, very, very often when I do close down a tarot reading with oracle card, it matches the entire reading that I had just given incredibly. It's been wild, and sometimes how much the oracle card will match the tarot reading, and then your client or your person or even yourself kind of is like, wow, that was amazing. This one is a little bit different, and this one kind of follows some pagan ideas. It's called the Wildwood Tarot, and it has a whole different, it doesn't necessarily follow the Rider-Waite. And so you have to kind of know what you're getting into. You have your Rider-Waite imagery, themes, and meanings. And then you have other tarot decks that completely go off Rider-Waite and don't have anything to do with it. This one follows it a little bit. Like you'll have the world tree, which I think is supposed to be the world, which is in the Rider-Waite. You have the page of arrows, which probably would be the page of swords. But then it has stuff like the journey. So I don't know who that one is supposed to be. The seer. It's a very cool deck. The pole star. So I would have to marry it up, and you would have to really get to know your definitions and how it applied to this deck, which is one reason I haven't really used it, is because I like the Rider-Waite imagery. I like the, I should say, definitions. And so to learn a whole new one, you'd have to really, it would take a lot of work and time. It doesn't mean you can't. Certainly, once you get good, you might want to shake it up a little bit, and you might want to have several different decks that you pick from, and your memory is good enough that you have that down pat, right? All right, let's move on. This one is an interesting too. I'm just giving you some ideas of how many different tarot decks are out there, because when you pick your first tarot deck, you really need to pick one and stick with it until you are good at it, and then kind of branch out into other ones, in my opinion. Everything's going to be my opinion. So if it doesn't resonate with you, don't take it. This is called Tarot of Mystical Moments. And what happens is the Queen of Pentacles, that doesn't look anything to me like the definition for the Queen of Pentacles. The King of Wands, he's on fire. Okay, wands are fire. Temperance. This one should be about balance, and it should be about finding your way and kind of, you know, looking for things. I'd have to look at, I don't do temperance very often. I hardly ever have that word. Balance in all things, stop filling other people's cups. So you don't necessarily see that in this card, but you do in the Rider-Waite. 10 of Cups, a very sweet one. So if you know your definitions, my point being, if you know your definitions really well, then it's easy to apply those to other decks. This one is the 9 of Wands. And so you can kind of see on her shirt where the 9 of Wands is about being hurt, right? And it's about kind of, oh, bouncing back. And are you ready to bounce back? And how about that baggage you're carrying behind you? What are you going to do with it? What do you need to do with it? That kind of a thing. This one comes with the, you know, the little white book. A lot of decks, almost all, come with some sort of a little white book. But again, if you know your definitions and you know what the card means to you, that little white book in a tarot deck isn't going to mean quite as much as it will for an oracle deck. All right. All right, so I want to go over a few myths. A lot of people, not a lot, some people will say for some reason or another that you cannot buy your own first tarot deck. This is crap. This is totally ridiculous. You can buy whatever you want. I have been supporting the tarot industry from the get-go. I'm not sure where that original idea that you're not supposed to buy your own tarot deck came from, but it's outdated and ridiculous. Absolutely. Go buy a tarot deck. Buy 4. No, I'm sorry. That counteracted what I said. If you're gonna follow the traditional Rider-Waite, buy one deck, get used to it, get very good at it, and then move into others. I used the Rider-Waite deck for the first 4 years. I think I only moved into the Light Seers like last year when I was doing my first TikTok account. And yeah, so it hasn't really been all that long, but once you get into it, once you really love a deck, it's amazing. Spirit's hanging out with me. I get what's called spirit nose. For one reason or another, whenever I do mediumship, tarot, psychic stuff, my nose itches like a mother heifer. And some people that know body language will be like, oh, that's because you're lying. Well, at the moment, I'm not even, there's nothing to lie about. So you can see where nothing, not always, things don't always mean what other people think they mean. So a body language expert would say doing this is that I'm lying and that's why I'm doing this, but it just itches. I'm also allergic to salt. So if I eat too much salt, it itches and turns red and drives me insane. Okay, we're going to keep going. So you have your deck. There's 78 cards in it. I have my little cheat sheet here, right? What did that one say? I didn't put numbers on there. So there are 4 suits, and those suits are wands, pentacles, cups, and swords. All right. This is an example of a pentacle. He's holding this cup. That is an example of a cups. This is an example of wands. And again, that's why it's because some people, depending on the deck you choose, some people will call these chalices. Some people will call these coins. Some people will call these, what is another name for the wands? And I put that on my oh, fire. They just refer to it as fire. And then that's and then we have swords. And swords are about air. All right, so let's keep going. So swords are about air and mental ideas. Okay. It's about honestly, the best way I've been able to remember swords, it's about mind fucks. Somebody's either too critical or somebody, this is the card of dishonesty. Somebody's, kind of screwing with your mind, right? It's a very mental card. It's very much about your mental ingenuity, your creativity, your ability to get out of a stuck situation. This guy is the 7 of Swords, and he thinks he's getting away with something, even though people know that he's dishonest and they know who he really is inside, if you will. Cups are about emotions and relationships. You can see that she cherishes her relationship. She's holding this tenderly. She's very proud of her cup trophy thing, whatever the heck it is. But you'll also notice on the card, and imagery is very important on the card. That's why it's important to get used to one deck before you move into other imagery. Her feet are on rocks. I don't know if you can see that. So she does tend to make things a little harder than they need to be from time to time. She is the drama from time to time. But definitely her love language is going to be emotions and physical, hugs, side hugs, whatever. Wands are about fire and passion. Excuse me. These are the doers and shakers. These are the go-getters, the getter-doners. Taking action, enthusiasm. And it's also about passion. So when you get a lot of wands in, let's say you were doing a relationship reading and you get all wands and no cups. Yes, there's a lot of passion and the sex is awesome, but is the emotion there? Is this a relationship that's going to last? So these are some of the things you kind of start thinking about as you're reading tarot. All right, Pentacles, all about earth energy, very practical, very money orientated, home, materialism. This happens to be the Ace of Pentacles. So if I were doing a reading and someone had a question about money and this came up, it would be a yes, because the aces are always a yes in my deck, which we'll get to. All right. We talked about swords, mental head fucks, no BS type of person, missing emotion. All swords, like all swords through like the whole reading, this person may even be neurodivergent. And it isn't that they are trying to head fuck you. It may be that they're the way that they think may be so very different that you need to take that into account when you're doing the reading. So if all you see are swords and you're just not getting a good feel for this person's energy or personality, don't forget to think about the neurodivergence in a lot of us. I personally am also neurodivergent. It's kind of seems like a buzzword nowadays. I think we all are. It just depends on about what, right? But that's something to think about. Okay, and then we talked about cups. Emotions, intuition, love, subconscious. And then what am I missing? Yeah, that's it. Okay. So then we talk about intuition versus card meanings. So one of the first things I want to say is that you do not need to do reversals. I don't do reversals. A lot of very well-known tarot readers that have been doing this for 40 years plus don't do reversals. So you don't have to do reversals. That is completely up to you. If you want to, do whatever you want, right? But you don't have to. There's no rule that says you have to. So that's the rule. You don't need to do reversals. You don't need to buy your own first tarot deck. So this brings us into, you need to decide for yourself who and how you're going to read. I enjoy reading on anything. If it is important enough for the person sitting across from me or on Zoom to ask me the question, then it is important enough for me to give that question respect. There are a ton of tarot readers out there who are like, oh, I won't even read for that. I'm not reading for that. I'm not reading for that. I'm not reading. I'm like, what do you read for? Like, like what are you telling people? Um, if a person sitting across from me cares enough about the question to ask me, because it actually takes some courage to sit down across from someone like me and ask an incredibly personal conversation or question and delve into a personal conversation. And so if they care enough about it, who am I to tell them that it A isn't important or B isn't something I'm going to read because of some rule that someone made up because it's the, era of consent. All right, so I just took a moment to count my cards, and I suggest that you do that on a regular basis because you would be surprised how often one card will just go MIA. All right, so back to the third party readings. If somebody wants to know if someone else is cheating and they are, so here's how I do it. Everyone has a sphere of energy, right? I'm energy. The person I live with are energy. The dogs and cats that are my family also are energy. My cousin is energy, etc. If someone comes to me and says, I want to know if my spouse is cheating on me, they are part of the same energy sphere. They are part of the same relationship. I think that they have just as much of a right to ask and know that as anything, as will I get this job? And here, and that's a great example that I just brought up. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. When you talk about your job, you're bringing in all that energy. So as the reader, we don't sit there and say, oh, I just want Mariana's energy. No, we need the whole situation. We need the whole, it's like asking someone for their side of the story and then just believing that they're completely right and there's nothing else to it, right? So if you are a person who likes to only get one side of the story and run with that and create drama, absolutely. Don't do third party. But if you're the kind of person who's like, "Ooh, gosh, there's two sides to every story. Let me look at this and see if this person is the drama." Sometimes the person sitting across from you, which is called the sitter, is the drama. And you can call them out politely, of course, and you can say, "Well, I do see here that you like a little bit of drama and you enjoy kind of conflict. Would you understand that?" And if they say yes, then you're actually helping the relationship. You know what I mean? Now, let's say the guy is cheating and it comes up in the cards. You can say, with all caveats, these are cards. This is the energy right now. I don't know if he's thinking about cheating or if he is cheating, but these do give me a positive vibe for yes. The answer to the question is yes. And that person who, 18 or over is an adult can take that information and go do what they like with it. You didn't say, oh my God, I see that he was screwing Patty on the third floor of 8th Street in the building, da da da. You better go, raise hell. No, you said, to validate the fears or whatever you're feeling right now, to validate that from a third party neutral person, it does look like you are correct. Okay. Then other people will say, "Oh, well, if they have to ask if someone's cheating, they already know the truth." No, they don't. No, they don't. I spent 27 years in a relationship where very often I did not know because I was being gaslit by a narcissist and I thought I was crazy. And I lived in a constant state of fight or flight, a constant state of, am I wrong? Am I crazy? So as someone comes to you and they're feeling vulnerable and and they don't want to be judged. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. If you don't want to read third party, by all means, don't read third party. If you do want to read third party, by all means, don't let someone else shame you or gaslight you into not doing it. Because people need us for these things. I very often we'll sit down and I'll say, I feel like you kind of already know this. And the person will say yes or no, right? There have been a few where I really had to broach the subject very tenderly because they truly didn't seem to have any idea that there was some dishonesty in the relationship. And so you can plant a seed. It doesn't mean that you're going to come right out and say, it looks like your husband's a big fat flipping liar. You're going to say, I do have some cards of dishonesty. And so maybe as you dwell on this and think on this and meditate on this, you kind of try to figure out where those pieces of dishonesty are in your relationship. And again, it could be the sitter that is the dishonest one. I was doing a reading for a gal and I said, well, there seems to be some dishonesty here and there seems to be some cheating here and I'm not sure what I'm seeing exactly. And she fell apart and it was her. She was the cheater and she was the one having a hard time. So when you decide to become a tarot reader, you need to be mature enough to deal with that. Number one, I did not judge her, nor will I, nor do I judge anyone, because she was in pain. She had made a mistake. She felt horrible. She was already beating herself up enough that she was already punishing herself. There's no reason for me to be judgmental and also punish her. And what am I going to say? Oh, you piece of shit. You know what I mean? And I don't think she's a piece of shit. I think that we all make mistakes and we all do things that we aren't proud of from time to time. But if I hadn't been someone who reads third party or doesn't read third party, I would have never been able to help her at all. Even though she was the cheater, I wouldn't have known that because I would have been like, oh, I don't read relationships. I don't read third party. Do you have a permission slip? I'm going to need a permission slip from your friend it was her friend's boyfriend that she was sleeping with. Plus she was living with her boyfriend. So what am I need a permission slip from the friend. I need a permission slip from the cheater that's cheating on the friend that basically talked this girl into sleeping with him. And then I'm going to need permission slip from the boyfriend. Up to you. I don't do permission slips. If somebody is in your energy, we read. All right, let's move on. I'm going to go make a hot tea. All right, I'm even going to go a step further. Have my little tea. It's actually hot water with lemon juice and honey because I'm having a hard time with dehydration. So it's actually not tea. Okay, whatever, same thing, right? I'm going to go a little bit further on the third party thing. I actually think that someone who pats themselves on the back for not reading third party, and yes, there's about to be a judgment in here. I think that someone who pats themselves on the back for not reading third party and all this consent stuff is actually quite egotistical. They are basically sitting in this chair telling the person sitting across from them what they think about their life, what they deem important about their life. And that is, I mean, in my opinion, it's not cool. All right, I'm gonna take a moment and I'm gonna divvy these up and we're gonna come right back. All right. So what I did is I went through and I divvied up my deck by the suits, right? So here are cups, here are swords, here are pentacles, and then we have wands. And actually, it's really good practice to do this every now and then because I had been using the light sphere deck so much that I was kind of struggling on some of the visuals, right? Like, is this temperance or is this justice? Or you get my point, right? All right, so let's start with swords. And I don't think that I won't go through every single one. You can get the cheat sheet if you like. Books have this in them, right? If you're really into this, you should already have at least a few books. Before I go there, another really inexpensive way to do this, let's say you don't even have $25 for the basic tarot deck. You could go to the Dollar General and for like 78 cents, you can get some index cards. Excuse me. And then for free, you can go to the library and check out a book on tarot. And you can literally write down Ace of Swords and then the definition. And then you can start shuffling those. If you really want to get fancy, you could even cover those in tape so that they're a little easier to handle and they don't fall apart so fast. So in my opinion, there's really no excuse for, oh, I don't have the time or I don't have the money. I work 2 jobs. I usually always have, if not 3. And I have kids and I have horses and I am fairly ADD. So that's not totally fair, but I even learned to do this, right? And I love it. And ever since I jumped in, I've been balls deep since then. That's probably not the right term for that. Okay. Let's go with swords. Again, swords is about our mind. Swords is equal to air, and it's about our mind, right? So you have the Ace of Swords. And so on the cheat sheet here, this is going to be one of my yes cards. So one of the things you also have to do is figure out which are your yes cards and which are your no cards. So for example, if I were to say, is so-and-so cheating? Because honestly, we get love and money are the two biggest questions we get. And I were to pick this up, and this were the first card that I threw down, it would be a hard yes. It would not just be a hard yes, but he's also probably, or she, playing mind games about the cheating. In other words, really messing with the other person. Like, no, I'm not, I would never cheat on you. Like, really the mind F's, you know what I mean? All right. Aces are always a yes in my deck. Two of Swords. This is going to be a hard stalemate card, right? And so you go through the definitions here, and most of the Rider-Waite are going to be the same. So, for example, what I have, you also need to learn Roman numerals. These don't even have numbers on them. I just, at this point, I know the cards, but normally this would have a 2 on it. Like, let's see. All right, so like this has XIX, right? So that's for the sun, and the sun is 19. So I don't even know my Roman numerals that good, but you have to get used to. So you can see at the top where it says XIX, that's 19 for the sun. All right. So where was I? So number 2, Two of Swords is going to be stalemate, choices, duality, emotionally stuck, take off the blindfold, stop stalling, you know what you need to do, cut the BS with yourself. So it's very interesting how these cards can talk to us. And so I think instead of going through every single definition, right, I'm going to go into some of how they talk to us a little bit. All right, but let's go to Cups. I mean, I'm just not going to go through every single card. My color changed for some reason. Okay. Ace of Cups. This is going to be new beginnings, emotionally just really starting out over again. Cups are equal to water, and water is our heart. That's how I put it. So for example, Ace of Cups, going to be a yes because it's an ace. Love, new beginnings, tons of emotions, can be a new baby on the way, healing, spiritual, your cup runneth over. Two of Cups, twos, and we'll get into this, are about choices. So that's what I was going to bring up. I'm sorry. Two, this is about choices, right? This is about choices. Okay. Twos are about choices, and that's where the numerology comes in, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But for example, twos, this isn't always about a relationship. This could be a partnership. This could be someone at work that you work with that is really helping you out. This very often, this medical thing in here, I will bring up, I will pick out the part of the card that calls to me the most. And so if I notice this medical thing up here, as opposed to the emotions, I'll say, are you having medical issues right now and you have to make choices and you're emotional about it? Okay. See how that just went down? That was good. And the person more than likely 95% of the time is going to be like, yes, fuck, you called it. You got it right away. All right. And my apologies. I do cuss and I try not to, but it just who I am. All right. So those are considered the minor arcana. All right. And the minor arcana are the everyday life choices, like kind of what shapes our day-to-day lives, softens our egos and softens our rough edges, people we meet at work, but also family. It's not more or less important than the major arcana. Then once you get, so let's just go through one. So ace is 1, 2 of cups, 2, 3 of cups, 3, right? 4 of cups, 5 of cups, 6 of cups. That's so funny because it just dawned on me. This is like the teenager. Well, this is this is like, hold on. This is the couple that had some kids who turn into teenagers and nothing's good enough, who have to leave home and don't realize they were going to be sad about it, who then reminisce nostalgically about their childhood. Anyway, that was the 6 of cups, 7 of cups, 8 of cups, 9 of cups, also called wishes fulfilled, and the 10 of cups. And the reason I'm doing that is because those are all the minor cards. Then you move into the court cards, and there are 4 of each suit. So we have the Page of Cups. We have the Knight of Cups, the Queen of Cups, and the King of Cups. Okay? Each one of the suits follows the same pattern. So when you get to the page of, it is going to be something like, number one, all pages are messengers in the Rider-Waite system. And so the first thing you're going to be like is, oh, this is going to be news of some sort, right? Then the fish coming out of the cup is often considered a surprise. This could be news of a pregnancy someone didn't expect or doesn't know about, or they could be pregnant. There is water behind it, so pages are usually more immature. You know, they're not as advanced as a king per se. So maybe they're emotionally a little more immature than they should be right now, because now they're pregnant and they're going to bring a child into the world. So you see where you pick the parts that you need for the reading, and that's really part of your intuition. And so that's kind of intuition versus card meetings. Your intuition is really your downloads. It's going to be like, well, this card normally means this, but for some reason I feel like it means that. Go with your intuition over the card meanings. It's not like you can say, oh, the Page of Cups, this means death and destruction. Okay, you can't like change it that much, but within the meanings of the Page of Cups, you can pick the one that suits the reading that you're doing. Or normally this means a young, emotionally immature college student, but today I feel like it's your husband who's not young. Dun, dun, dun. Would you understand this? So then, you see where I'm going with that? Okay. And then you have your Knight, which is usually movement. Let's see, what is this one? The Knight of Cups. What do I have? Oh, the Knight in shining armor. Both sexes, they like to save others while ignoring themselves in relationships. They are skillful and savvy and idealistic at work and in relationships. So that's a pretty neat one. Now, what if this was a business reading and we're talking about somebody says, I want to start a new business, and you get the Knight of Cups and it's the first card, and you're like, I don't know what. Well, this could very well represent the sitter sitting across from you who is savvy and idealistic, especially at work. Okay, so you take out the relationship part, but then you also go back and you realize that they like to save others. That's going to mean they need to watch their back. They can't go in being all Pollyanna, positive, I'm going to save the world. They need to cross their I's and dot their T's in all the contracts. They need to make sure that the person that they're about to go into business with, whether that's themselves, obviously with themselves, partners, what have you, that those people aren't trying to take advantage of them, because these are the optimists, right? So that's how you might switch that up if it was work instead of love. And then you have the King of Cups, and then you have the Queen of Cups, and you're going to have those 4 court cards in each suit, and they're going to mean something a little different. Well, let's do it this way. So that was the Knight of Cups. So the Knight of Swords, new relationship that is mentally stimulating. Unlike that last loser you wasted tears on. I get a little creative. But also maybe stubborn, overbearing, and consider if the work is worth it. So if you get the Knight of Swords in a career type reading, is the work worth it? Because there's going to be a lot of mental games going on, right? And then Knight of Swords is also take someone out of the friend zone and check applicability for love. So let's say that it is a love relationship. Is there someone in that friend zone? So you go like, oh, that was the Knight of Swords. So you have the Knight of Swords, and he's trying to come in and be that knight in shining armor. He's trying to come in and have a relationship, but you friend zoned him because in your mind, for some reason, he's not suitable. So the sword is going to be your mind, right? For some reason, you've put him into a box that you kind of need to recheck, if you will. I get that. I get kind of a lot of friend zoned people that need to recheck their calibration. All right. I had to finish that before it got any colder. All right. Then we have the major arcana. Dun dun dun, the big players and the big dogs. Now, again, these cards aren't better or worse than any others. There are no bad cards. That's another myth that I should have brought up before. There are no bad cards. Death and the devil have meanings. And if they're in that person's life, then you know, there's a reason they're coming up. Okay. Now, does it mean that there's some toxicity in the relationship? Probably, especially if you get death and devil, right? But let's go through this. So number one is the Fool. So this is going to be 0. Some people put a lot of meaning just on the number 0, right? It's neither here nor there. It's not even a number, or is it a number? Where did I put that? I know, you know what? Hold on. On my other cheat sheet, this is the numerology cheat sheet that you can add to your readings, right? Some people are so into numerology, they do readings just that way. Some people are so into astrology, they just do readings that way. So if you're starting with the tarot and you're already doing astrology, don't be afraid to look up the astrological part of the card, because mostly in the major, yes, the major, mostly in the major, they have astrological signs attributed to them, and so you can add that to your card as you read. All right, so what about 0? So this is kind of advanced. First, you just need to know it's the Fool. New beginnings, watch your step, don't be a dumbass. Whatever you're jumping into, do your due diligence. But then if you were to go and add numerology, what about 0? And I said the number doesn't really exist because it is not a number. The 0 is the life of the Fool, and the Fool doesn't know that all things aren't possible. The Fool is about to take that leap of faith and see where he or she falls. If you're seeing a lot of 0s, be still. What can you get rid of in your life? What would you like to add to your life? And so these are just like prompts, right? That you can have a conversation. You don't need to do them all. You look down there and you're like, this one stands out. This is the one I'm going to say. Does that make sense? The negative side of 0 is that you aren't taking up your space like you need to. You feel invisible, and yet you know how to communicate well. So use your words to reclaim that space that is yours in the universe. So that's when you start adding numbers to the readings as well. All right, so we have the Fool, and then we go on to the Magician. The Magician, and I'll just go through these quickly. The High Priestess. The High Priestess is us. They're the psychics, the mediums, the tarot readers. They know things, and people are like, "How do you know that?" Because I am the High Priestess. All right, we have the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant. Again, I call him the Pope a lot because he's the one that unites the lovers. But it also indicates somebody who is very traditional. Someone who would enjoy ceremony. Can be someone who's going to give you guidance. So if this was a career reading and the Hierophant comes up, there's someone in that sitter's life that is available to be a mentor, so to speak. Okay. Spirituality, priest, counselor, teacher, holy. And then it goes on. The lovers. This is going to be one of my yes cards. So if I were, again, doing a reading and there was a yes or no question in there and I pull this card, it's going to be a yes for the question. The Chariot movement. I love this card. It's a masculine card, and yet it isn't. It's a very interesting card to me. It's also going to be a yes. What do I have for strength? Strength, I don't have yes or no. So what I did on my cheat sheet is that after the cards that are my yeses, I put just like a little yes. I accidentally hit my button. And after the ones that are no's, I put no's. Okay, so where do we go from there? So let's talk about, let me think. All right, so if you don't have the money for a cheat sheet, and you know what? Sometimes that's how life goes, right? I think I priced the cheat sheet at $10 because there's a lot of info, and I think I did the numerology at like $5, 5 or 6, I can't recall. But if you don't have it, then you again go to the library, get a book, and write this stuff down. Make your own cheat sheet. This is also what I do for all of my Oracle, not all of them, but the ones that I really want to use. I will go through and I'll make a little cheat sheet that'll fit on a 5x8 card maybe. And this one has the definitions kind of already on it. But if I had an Oracle deck that didn't have it on there, I would go through and make a cheat sheet for that. Cheat sheets are amazing. All right. All right. I used to work on the psychic hotline, and I would refer to my cheat sheets. I also had card combinations that kind of meant certain things. All right, so that is basically the basics. Now, let's talk really fast about shuffling because it's hard for me sometimes to go basic because I guess I didn't realize how much some of this is just instinctual. I'm going to pick up the Light Seers deck. I did want to talk about the differences in some of the cards, like the Empress. You can literally see that's the mom card, right? And then the Empress in this deck. Let's see. Let's get a good example here. Is you can kind of see that she might be pregnant or a mom, but it's not the first thing that pops into my brain when I look at that card. It is definitely the first thing that pops into my brain when I look at this card. And that's also where part of your intuition is going to come up. I really like the Light Seers again because it's more diverse, right? This is a badass woman who takes care of her money, knows how to make money, probably saves money. She's content with her place in the world. She's content with her personality, her ability to get shit done. Knight of Swords. You know this person is likely. These are incredibly intuitive because if you pull this up in a relationship reading and you don't get here, let me do it this way. Sorry, Spirit's still driving my nose nuts. Driving me nuts. Let's say you get, I'm looking for, hold on. Okay, it took me a minute because the Knight of Cups doesn't look like the Rider-Waite Knight of Cups. So let's say you're doing a relationship reading and you pull out, and you're using this deck, obviously, and you pull out two different cards. Let's say this person has two people to pick from. I have two men in my life, and I would like to know which one is going to be, the healthiest for me to go forward with. Choice number one, we pull up the Knight of Swords. Okay, to me, this person, regardless of all right, Knight of Swords. Hold on. And this is why these come in handy because I can't remember what the Rider-Waite one says. And now I can't even remember where there we go. New relationship, mentally stimulating. But does that look mentally stimulating? So regardless of what the cheat sheet says, if this is the deck that you're using, go with your intuition because that does not look mentally stimulating to me. Okay. Now, choice number two, right? We bring up the Knight of Cups. Which one do you think is going to be a better one for that person to go forward with? Which one do you think is going to be a healthier choice for that person to go forward with? This guy's always looking for adventure and adrenaline, and he's likely to. Now, whoops. Now, let's say the woman says he's travels for work and he's a travel writer, right? Then he's going to be leaving a lot, and this might not mean the same thing as it does for someone who works at the oil field. Okay. Regardless, I'm still probably going to say that the Knight of Cups, as long as that's compatible with her, is going to be the better choice, right? Or him, or him. So, so whether this is a gay, straight, trans relationship, whatever's going on, if the person is looking for romance and emotion and someone who's emotionally available and will be romantic, this is going to be the better choice. Now, what happens if you get the Seven of Pentacles? All right. This person is going to be very into building roots and setting down a foundation. This person is going to be very particular. This person might be borderline OCD on, well, we need to do this first, and then we need to do this first. And so you have to know that you're compatible with this person. I mean, if this is just a one weekend thing and that's all you're looking for, this is your guy. But if you're looking to get married, set down roots, have children, be in a small community, traditional community, whatever, not even a small community, but just a more traditional community, this is going to be your guy. Now, what happens if you pick up this card? The devil, right, is going to be sex for sex sake. It's going to be good sex, but it's going to be that toxic, unattached, unemotional, one night type thing, right? Or weekend. And so what happens when someone's married to this? What happens when someone's married to the toxicity, right? This could be addictions. This could be food addiction, porn addiction, sex addiction, any kind of addictions. But within the devil, there's a certain amount of toxicity. Let's see what I put here. It's a no card. Toxic sex that is great, but not good for you. Addictions of all kinds, emotional bondage, Could even be the other kind of bondage. Control, imbalance, obsession, abuse, time to get out of the relationship, addicted to porn. So these are going to be, obviously it wouldn't be all of those things in one. That's where you pick out the one that jumps out to you the most because you're using your intuition in the reading. Okay. Where else was I going? Hold on. That's right. We were going to shuffle. This is how I shuffle. Number one, some decks are going to be bigger than others. Like, for example, I put this away already. This one, you can see, is bigger than this one, right? Not by a whole lot, but some tarot cards are quite large. But this one also has, which you'll need to keep in mind, it has gilded edges. So it has that really pretty gilded edge, right? So if you were to riffle shuffle like you would a poker deck, when you take them and you riffle shuffle, you can Google it if you don't know what I mean. That's a bitchin' card. Look at that King of Cups. That is cool. Anyways, if you riffle shuffle these, you're going to ruin that edging. You're going to ruin the cards, in my opinion. And this is one I definitely would do like this, right? You pull from the bottom. It goes from one hand into the next. These are nice and slippery. And so you'll have to be careful that they don't start going flying everywhere. So you have to be just a little more conscientious of that until you work your deck in. I've used this a few times, but not a whole lot. I really like it visually. Oh, my nose. Visually, it's absolutely beautiful. It's just a really cool deck. All right. That is pretty much how I shuffle all my cards, and that's why I don't want to ruin my cards. They're not cheap. I don't think that, because you'll go on TikTok and you'll see these people that are like, they're like, oh, look, I have jumpers. That's a little dramatic, but swear to gosh, they're like that on there. Those aren't jumpers. You're just being a spaz because you think it's funny or you think that's how you get attention or something like that. Remind me, we'll talk about jumpers. All right, so I don't do that. I don't think the faster you shuffle, the better it is. I don't think every card has to be a jumper. I'll just talk about it really fast. As you're shuffling, and I try to keep it under control because I don't think it needs to be a show. If I was doing this and a card just flew out, that would be a jumper. Now, if 7 cards fly out, I think I probably just wasn't shuffling very well and I'll stick them back in the deck. I also, again, don't do reversed. So all my cards are going to be upright. All my cards are going to be upright. And I do check my deck from time to time, but every now and then a reverse card will make its way in. So I literally just do it like this. Let's just say that card, because I'm shuffling too well. Let's say it jumped out. Okay, that card jumped out for whatever reason. I would leave it, it jumped out face down. Okay, I would leave it face down as I continued to shuffle. These are going to be things that you decide to do for yourself. You don't have to do it that way. Feel free to be intuitive and do it the way you want to. Then I'm going to cut. I'm going to take the top card, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to have the shadow card, which is this card at the bottom of your deck after you've shuffled and you've taken your cards out. Now, the jumper was the Empress. So I'm going to assume this person is probably a mother and might even be asking me about a loss that she may have had, because we have a pregnancy as the jumper, and then we have the 8 of Cups as the first one after that. She may have lost the baby and she may still be dealing with that and have some fear about getting pregnant again. Then we have Justice, which is a balance card. She could still be very angry and bitter about the fact that she lost this baby. And then we have the 3 of Cups, which is normally a support card, right? This is the family card. This is it can be family, it can be sisters, they can also just be friends, right? So she has a good support system, and that's what she has to really rely on in order to get over the grief and complete grief of losing the baby. So I'm just making this up as I'm going along, but these are the type of readings that I've had. Now, in this case, the wheel doesn't really speak to me. This is the shadow card on the bottom. The wheel doesn't really speak to me, so I'm not going to use it. But if this card had been the one, which is right under the wheel, if this card had been the shadow card, it would have spoken to me, because the 6 of Wands is the victory card. You will get pregnant again. You will have a successful pregnancy. I mean, depending, right? I may not say it just like that. I may say, you could try again because the odds are in your favor that you will have, a good and successful, healthy pregnancy. You have to be careful what you promise people because they really remember us. They remember exactly what we say. I remember I went to one time and they were like, "Oh, you're going to have a new relationship and it's going to be someone you already know. And he comes back into your life and he's going to drive a truck." I mean, for months I was like, "Who do I know that drives a truck?" Um, and it never happened. So we have to be careful. We are reading the energy of this moment. I tell people I'll go 3 to 6 months out and that's it. Because people will sit down and go, "Tell me about my whole life. Tell me about, 5 years from now. Tell me 10 years from now. Tell me the whole year. Well, am I going to be successful?" So that's another thing to talk about. And this is free. So yes, I know it's all over the place. Take it or leave it. I read 3 to 6 months out and 3 to 6 months behind. So often, sometimes older things will pop in there, especially if someone is still dealing with the baggage of being cheated on and lied to. Let's see what else. Yes, you can be totally psychic and do readings without cards. Absolutely. There's no reason for the cards. But if you pull this out, if you say, "Oh, I see a guy and he's going to be sweet," and then compared to this, right? "I see a guy, he's going to be sweet." It gives you a visual, it gives the sitter a visual, it keeps you on track, it keeps you focused. You're not going down a bunch of rabbit holes. I just enjoy the cards. I love the tactile. I love to do this as I'm thinking. It keeps my hands busy because I'm very ADHD, that sort of thing, right? So we talked about jumpers. Not all the cards have to be jumpers. If you get a jumper, I do feel like they mean a little something. I definitely take notice of them. If I do get an accidental reverse card in my deck, I take notice of that. I had one time that all three of them were reversed, and I literally just told you, like, I'll go through my deck from time to time, and all three of them were reversed. And I was like, did I pick up the deck? Like, did I pick it up like this? So I look at the deck, but it was right. So I was like, okay, well, you're really blocked. If I get three reverse cards, and so whatever she was blocked about, we went through that. I feel like I was going to say something else, but I can't watch this back either. So one of the other aspects of tarot are the numbers, is the numerology part of it. So for example, when you get the Four of Swords, fours are about foundation, being stable, and family. So if this person, and swords are about your mind and your mental, where you are mentally, whether you're depressed or happy, or you're dealing with stuff, or you're being too critical of yourself, or someone else is being too critical of you. So if you were to get the Four of Swords, very, very often, this could be that her foundation has been rocked and she is taken to the nest, if you will, to kind of lick her wounds and be depressed for a while. There's nothing wrong with allowing the feelings to recycle through you. It's Everybody goes, "Oh, well, she's depressed." Okay, well, be depressed for a while and then snap out of it and go on with your life, right? um this Let's see, I was doing numbers. Let me see. All right, the Nine of Pentacles. The Nine of Pentacles, this is a successful woman who almost everything she touches turns out successful, whatever that means to the sitter, right? Whatever that means to the person sitting across from you. Like if this were a career card, very good at their career, very good at making money. Whether or not they're good at hanging on to it or not might depend on the other cards surrounding her. But numerology speaking, nines are about being done, attainment, fulfillment. And for the negative, if this was a negative situation, maybe she's been broke for so long and this comes up, the situation is almost over because tens are about completion. So you can also do a little cheat sheet on numerology. Again, you don't have to buy mine. There's books on them at the library. Certainly make your own cheat sheet if you want to. And what else? What else? I think that's pretty good for a basics, and it's kind of long. And so if you've stuck with me this long, thank you. Um, I'm more organized in my classes because normally I have an agenda. And I despise people that are like, I've been to classes where they're like, "I'm gonna let spirit lead me." Well, that's not how I do my classes. So I have an agenda. I have certain things that we'll cover. This is the basics. This was just about the cards, mostly about some of the myths, about shuffling. Again, some people will shuffle that riffle shuffle. Some people will take them sideways and do it this way. Some people spread them out on a table, mix them all up, and then pick cards from there and then get them all back together. You can do that if you want to. I've never done that personally because it makes a mess and I never have that kind of room. If you have any questions, put them in the comments and I can do a video reply or, whatever it is we do on YouTube. I'm still getting used to YouTube. This is going to be fairly long. Again, if you stuck with me, thank you. I will put my information down below. Have a great day. And now I can't figure out how to turn it off.